I know yesterday I came on and explained how these new OpenAI agent builders are sort of working. And today I just wanted to show you an example of how it works in practice for a use case that might be relevant to a given business. Now, I think it's important to know that I've taken some liberties in sort of streamlining how I build this flow. I'm going to continue to explore in ways in which I can further expand and automate different functions for this. But I think the simplicity and accessibility of what I've created today is beginning to show how powerful these tools really are within OpenAI's new framework. And they just make it so simple. Like there's tons of workflows out there, Langflow, NAN, um, the FlowWise areas. And I've explored quite a few of those if you've followed anything I've published in the past. But this one just seems a bit simpler. Now, NAN seems more powerful, but this is very infancy stages. We're what, a week, maybe a week and a half into this really being developed and explored, and it's already relatively approachable for an individual to create and begin building with success. So what am I talking about? OpenAI has this new agent builder website. If you click in here, there's going to be a bit of permissions and sort of you got to share your ID and they need to verify who you are. But after you've done that, they'll open up to this templates area in which you can build different agent flows. Now, this is a relatively they say no code environment, but having coding experience is going to help you understand logic-based solutions to problems that you might have. These are just examples that they already provide today, but I just created even a simpler example with this workflow. So I have this supplier onboarding tool. And the idea is if we started a new project, we onboard new suppliers, there's certain information that we need from our suppliers to achieve success. So within there, it's just a one node workflow, which is pretty awesome to be able to do. You just start here, which I didn't do anything to do. It automatically came in, and then I added an agent node here, which is the supplier intake agent. And this is where all the work that I completed was. So first and foremost, I added a system prompt. Now, if you're having concerns or issues with this, you can just automatically sort of go to GPT, lay out what you're trying to do, and begin there. Now, that's not going to be an end all be all. You sort of still need to understand the logic that's being parsed out. You can look at it and then begin to understand what it's saying and how you can look at it. I say that because when I was connecting to my Google Drive, I had issues because I couldn't find the file type. So I ended up changing it a bit, adjusting the file paths, really verifying where that information was stored, whether I was uploading it directly to the agent for use in a vector storage base, and or was I loading it to the Google Drive account in which they needed to connect via my API. So essentially, this is all that I have in here, just laying out what documents are and laying out some steps in which it needs to follow, the agent must follow to verify the information. So think about this as your SOP and your work processes. Have you laid out all the steps in which a function require, like sort of routine work in which you go to this and you verify if that, then this? That's essentially what you're doing here. Now you can make these flows even longer and have multiple checks. But for the sake of this tutorial, it's just a one node workflow. Now that I have that, I connected these, what they call tools. Now, a tool is essentially just like a tradesman. You have a hammer to do hammer work, you have a saw to do saw work. Same thing with these agents. You have a certain tool to do a certain function. I've chosen some pretty easy ones, specifically a Google Drive and then a document storage area. So the document storage is essentially just loading the data up as a just plain text file or JSON file. And it's essentially a drag and drop. You just click add, drag and drop it, and it loads the file in there. It also stores it in this ID. So, if the path changes or anything, it's tied to that ID. So if I need to use this again in the future for another, I can just reference this ID and it'll pull it in automatically for me. There's a bit more to understand about how the model looks at this data, and there's a lot of videos about tokenization and vector storage and all that. So check those out if you're confused on how any of that stuff is working behind the scenes. But for a normal user, just understanding that you can store your data and as rules and such, and then call it forward later right here is important. In our system prompt, that's what we did. Now we'll go ahead and understand how we've connected the Google Drive. How we do that is this Model Context Protocol server, MCP server. That's essentially just a way in which the large language models can communicate with real-time outside data across different applications. So now you're not just tied to this one prompt window. You can connect entire systems to your AI tools. And that becomes really powerful when you can go to your SharePoint list, your SQL servers, your Outlook calendars, and pull all this information together and do different functions along the way. That all happens with MCP and makes it sort of reproducible and actually maintainable and scalable. So if you click on your Google Drive area, it's going to ask you for a token. You can give it a name, and then all you do is you click Get Access Token, and in here you can type in Control F for Drive and search for it, and it should pop up in here, and you can see the drive. It's going to say go ahead and select this. This is going to be your higher level version. You can also select these other ones as well. Really any of these, but if you select the upper level one, it should give you everything that you need. If you're having issues with it failing out and not able to find your files, maybe try to select a few others. There's security concerns as well, so just use your best judgment, understanding of what you're trying to do and who you're doing it for before you just sort of commit to allowing the API to access everything. And then you're going to go ahead after you've accepted it and move through. You'll go ahead and exchange authorization code for tokens, and then you'll be able to refresh your tokens. So once you've clicked here, I kind of jumped ahead of myself. So once you click here, you go down to authorize. Bit of a lag going on. You go down to authorize APIs. It's going to ask which account, and then you just follow the prompts. I'm not going to do that because I've already sort of created it and I'm getting a bit of system lag. But that's the overall idea. In my Google Drive, I set it up that way because I've added the supplier intake form to sort of capture that information. Now, I understand there could be more automated ways of doing this, but to get this out quickly and to showcase the power of an agent, I just built a spreadsheet that sort of had the indicators and the rules follow those indicators. Now, if I were to do this one step further, maybe I would just have these files with a certain naming convention. We would look at the supplier's file, check manually to see does it have this, yes or no. If no, go ahead and add that to a list of items to include in the overall email. So when we're looking here, we can see sort of Summit IT Logistics does not have insurance on file. That is a required field that we would need from that supplier. Now, there are other fields that are optional based on what type of supplier it is. But for this one, we need an insurance file. So normally you'd have to understand, go to the file, is insurance on file, yes or no? And then go ahead, look up the POC for that file, and then put together an email with the verbiage that is required and wait for a given response. But instead, we set those rules up early, set up what the schema needs to look like, what we're looking for in that file, and then we set up an automated email. The rules had an automated sort of message that we want to send forward with areas with double sort of squiggly quotations to autofill things like email and primary contact information. Think about it like a access form in which you're automatically filling out different pieces. That's sort of what we've done here with the AI tool. Then the AI tool understands what they're looking for. They're going to go ahead and start to put together an email. Now, we could just leave it at that and leave it as just the information in plain text form. You would copy and paste it. But what OpenAI has also provided with this agent builder is this widget builder input as well. And I think I have it saved already. Yes, already. So there's a gallery of different options that you can build your apps into when you publish it into production, where these widgets will automatically connect back to AI tools. And just so happens that they have a AI widget for an email. So we can point the output to be an email based on whatever flow we have. This is the final flow, and it's going to automatically give us the code to write that. But we don't have to really know the code. You just you can adjust it if you want to tell a different story, but you can just go ahead and open it in your widget editor, and then you can download that file and then store it to wherever you need to store it at. And then later on, what you can do, you point to where that email was stored, and it'll just provide the out question. So if we remember our original data, what we have here is the supplier intake form, in which I want to do a check on this supplier IT solutions that goes to this Mark character. And we see that he doesn't have any insurance on file. So will our agent be able to figure it out? So can you check for making sure they have everything on file? What's happening now is it's going to go through the rules and the steps that we've already provided it to begin to determine, do we have everything that we need? It's going to ask me to approve it. So we can automate that out as well. I just left it for now. And what it's doing is it's going through those rules that we had given in the system prompt. It's going through the files that we had uploaded in the vector storage database. And then it's also going to pull the information out of the Google Drive to try and determine what is the logic and do we have all the information from the logic that we had. So you can see it telling you what its next step is. And if you're familiar with any sort of deep learning on the or the steps and the processes that they use in sort of ChatGPT, it might look familiar, but maybe even more robust than what you're used to. I like looking at this because it helps me understand, is it doing what I think it should be doing? So we'll just let it go ahead and run. It does have the correct email. We could essentially assign it to our email as well if we had it in an actual widget in production. And before we can finalize onboarding, we still need the following items: a certificate of insurance. We currently have no insurance on file and no expiration date. Please send these documents to our email address by a given date. So we gave them 2 weeks to do it. We could probably tweak that additionally to adjust it. And then it's essentially a widget. The user would go ahead and say, yep, that looks correct. Go ahead and send email. And think about doing this in mass, not just to one person, but to multiple. Now you sign in, what would take you maybe multiple hours to validate on each specific job or supplier that you have. Now you can go ahead and build that out, have it automatically send it, and go ahead and push it forward. So the other question is, well, how much is this going to cost me? Because AI is not free. Looking at all this information still is not free. There's a lot of actions going on. So there's a usage portal here. You can begin to understand what your total spend is, and it's pennies for each query. If you start to scale it much larger, maybe it costs a little bit more. So that individual query was 84 cents. No, that over the last 2 days, I've spent 84 cents in total on just testing some of this out. So it's about 5 to 10 cents per query to do that. So pretty negligible when you figure out somebody else having to go in, find all that information, send the email, could be an hour or two, and now you've just done it for 10 cents. So this is the power of agents. This is why I get so excited about them. I'm going to continue to explore this, continue to see how I can push and understand different elements of this. But I thought I would share for anybody else interested in not really understanding how agents work in the day-to-day, that this video might help you as a resource to how you can integrate agents into your own businesses.